Hey, happy Monday, everybody. This is First Warn Storm Team Chief Meteorologist Brad Panovich. We had an earthquake this morning up near Hickory, and a lot of folks asking, what's going on? Well, let me give you some assurances here to kind of rest any worries. This is actually completely normal. Many folks may not realize that earthquakes in our part of the country are pretty normal. This was the quake this morning. It was a tiny quake. In fact, nobody reported feeling it, at least to the USGS. The only way we knew it happened was with seismographs, or what we call heliocorders. They basically record the ground shaking, and several of them across the United States, especially the eastern half of the country, registered this very small, very shallow quake, only about 2.5 kilometers deep. So that was a very shallow quake. And again, it's very minor, 1.5. It might have felt like a truck going by your house. So you probably didn't even notice. But many people may not realize that in our part of the country, earthquakes are completely normal. In fact, this is the hazard map for the U.S., and you can see a couple things pop out. Obviously, we know about the West Coast. We know about areas around the Intermountain West, like around Yellowstone. But one area people don't think about, the New Madron Fault Zone, which is a huge fault zone in the middle of the Mississippi River Valley. But then look at the southeast, from the mountains of North Carolina, eastern Tennessee, down to Charleston. There's also a little peak, obviously, in the middle of the country, around Oklahoma, Kansas, and North Texas. That's mainly due to what we call human-induced seismicity. Basically, the fracking, not really the fracking, but the injection of the wastewater is causing earthquakes to occur. And anywhere you see a box, those are areas of the country where we think man is having some type of impact in causing the quakes. That's not the case in our part of the country because there's no fracking going on, so that's not the cause. There's just your normal faults, which are down in the Charleston area and the mountains. The mountains formed through geological processes, and that process is still going on. Some of it's settling. So it's completely normal. In fact, if we look at earthquakes across South Carolina since 1900, you can see how many have been recorded. Quite a few. In fact, a lot around Somerville. Those are probably still aftershocks from what is the biggest earthquake to ever occur in the eastern U.S., which is a 7.1 magnitude quake in Charleston. Now, the actual magnitude is kind of up for debate. Some folks think that this might have been something more of a 6.9 to 7.3, but you can Google this and look up the Charleston earthquake. It is by far the biggest quake to ever hit this part of the country. And there was another big quake in our area up in Union County, South Carolina in 1913. That quake was a 5.5, and that was certainly felt in Charlotte. The Charleston quake in 1887 actually caused damage all the way up into the Charlotte area. So that's South Carolina, but check out North Carolina. You get to the mountains of eastern Tennessee, look how many earthquakes have occurred. So all of this is completely normal. We don't get them with the same frequency they do on the West Coast. They tend to be weaker earthquakes. But here's the thing about earthquakes in the eastern U.S. Because of the bedrock and because we don't have a bunch of faults to break up the waves, we tend to feel them over much larger distances. Now, one thing to keep in mind is we run simulations if we get another big quake in these seismically active areas. And you can see, this is again, if there's another large quake in the Charleston area, you can see that there would be shaking all the way up into the Charlotte area. In fact, some of that would be moderate shaking and maybe even some damage. The thing that makes the earthquakes in the eastern U.S. a little bit worrisome is that we don't really have building codes for earthquakes. Now, in the Charleston area, they do. It's one of the few unique locations in the country where they have building codes for both hurricanes and earthquakes. But in our area, we don't have building codes for earthquakes. Just like we saw with the big Northern Virginia earthquake several years ago, a lot of damage was caused even up into the D.C. area. The Washington Monument was damaged because those areas just aren't used to seeing that type of shaking. So just to put your worries at ease, this is normal. We're probably going to see more. I like to keep up with them. I have my app sending me updates anytime we get an earthquake, so I always post them. That's the other thing. In this modern day age of social media, pretty much every earthquake is going to be registered and talked about online, just like every single tornado is going to be talked about and photographed and videoed online, and everyone's going to see it. So a lot of these events seem like they're occurring more often, but what's really going on is you're just hearing about them more often. So if you want more information, I'll post a couple links here on my video at the bottom in the comments. You guys can go check it out. But rest assured, this is normal. You can see this part of the country, we do get earthquakes, and we are going to feel them from time to time.